All right, let's dive into something that seems, well, super simple, but is actually one of the biggest head scratchers in economics. The question is, why do we save? I know, it sounds almost silly to ask, right? But believe me, the way we answer that question, it changes everything about how we understand our economy. So let's get into it. It's kind of like an economic detective story. Okay, let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine, out of the blue, you get an unexpected bonus. What's the very first thing that pops into your head? Are you already booking flights for that vacation you've been dreaming of? Or is your practical side kicking in, thinking about your savings account or that pesky credit card bill? For most of us, it's probably a little bit of both, right? Well, that little mental tug of war you just had, that choice between enjoying the money now versus stashing it away for later, that right there is the key to a massive economic puzzle. Seriously. For decades, economists have been obsessed with trying to figure out how to model that exact decision. Because if they can get it right, it has huge consequences for economic growth, for government policy, really for all of our futures. So let's get into the heart of the puzzle. To really appreciate the big breakthrough, we gotta first look at what the old models got wrong. And boy, did they have a major blind spot when it came to saving. Okay, so the main issue boils down to two kind of nerdy sounding words, exogenous and endogenous. In the old models, savings were exogenous. All that means is that economists basically just made up a number. They'd say, all right, for our model, let's just assume everyone saves, say, 20% of their income. But you see the problem, right? That's not explaining anything, it's just an assumption. The new models we're talking about today treat savings as endogenous. That's a huge deal. It means the savings rate isn't just a number you plug in, it's the outcome of real choices people make. It's something we can actually try to explain. And this gets right to the core of the problem. Those old models were missing what economists call a micro-foundation. It's a bit of jargon, but it's super important. They had these incredibly detailed models for how a business would maximize its profits, down to the last penny. But when it came to a regular person, they never actually asked why. Why would you or I choose to save a certain amount? That whole human element was just gone. A giant, crucial piece of the puzzle, just totally ignored. So this is where our story gets interesting. In 1965, an economist named Peter Diamond shows up and has this totally revolutionary idea. He said, forget just assuming a savings rate. Let's build a model from the ground up. Let's base it on how people actually live. And the beauty of what's called the Diamond model is how simple and elegant it is. It basically says, let's imagine life has two periods. That's it. Period one, you're young. You're working, earning an income, and you have to make that classic decision. How much do I spend now, and how much do I save for later? Then comes period two. You're old. You're retired. The only way you can consume anything is by using the savings you put away when you were young, plus whatever return it's earned. I mean, it's a really simple idea, but it perfectly captures that fundamental trade-off we all face in our lives. So according to this model, what's going on in your head when you make that choice? Well, Diamond said it's a battle between three main forces. First, there's the return you get on your savings, the interest rate. The higher the interest rate, the more tempting it is to save, right? But pushing back against that is force number two, our own impatience. We just prefer stuff now. Waiting is a pain. And finally, there's this third force, our desire to smooth consumption. Basically, nobody wants to feast when they're 30 and then face famine when they're 70. We want a nice, steady lifestyle. And your personal decision about how much to save, it's just the outcome of you trying to balance these three things. Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting. Because you would think, logically, that if every single person is making the absolute best, most rational decision for themselves, then the economy as a whole should work out perfectly, right? It should be super efficient. Well, what the Diamond model showed was something completely unexpected, a real paradox. So this sets up the big question. Let's say every single young person out there does the math perfectly. They weigh their impatience, their desire for a stable life, the interest rates, and they all pick the perfect savings rate for them. Does that automatically create the best possible economy for society as a whole? And the answer, amazingly, is no. Not at all. The model showed that the economy can get stuck in a state called dynamic inefficiency. Now, what that means is that the outcome isn't what economists call Pareto optimal. That's a fancy term for a situation where you can't make anyone better off without making someone else worse off. In a dynamically inefficient economy, you can actually make some people better off without hurting anyone else. Think about that. It means there's a way for some people or even whole generations to win without anyone having to lose. So the really shocking result here is that even if you have an entire country full of perfectly rational people making the best possible choices for themselves, the economy as a whole can still mess up. It can end up saving way too much or way too little. Individual smarts, it turns out, don't automatically add up to collective perfection. But why? How is that even possible? Well, the culprit is time itself, and the fact that we have different generations. Think about it. You, as a young person today, can't make a contract with your great-grandparents. And you can't lend money to a retired person today and expect them to pay you back in 50 years. They won't be around. This creates what economists call an incomplete market. There are all these deals that would make everyone better off, trades across generations, but they can't happen. The market just isn't there. And this isn't just some abstract theory. It has huge, real-world implications. Take a situation where the economy is saving too much. A policy like Social Security, which is a pay-as-you-go system, suddenly looks like a genius solution. Why? Because it taxes young workers and gives that money directly to retired people. This forces the young to save a bit less and lets the old consume more. It can actually nudge the entire economy back toward a more efficient, better outcome for everyone. Suddenly, this model gives us a really strong argument for why a government program like that might be necessary. But hold on, that's not the end of the story. A lot of economists were, let's say, uncomfortable with the messy conclusion of the diamond model. So another model came along, the RCK model. And it found a way to make this whole inefficiency problem just go away. How? By changing one single massive assumption about who's making the decisions. So here's the fundamental split. The diamond model tries to look at society the way it actually is, this overlapping kind of messy mix of young people and old people, all of us with limited lifespans. The RCK model, it throws that out. It says, let's just imagine society as one single person, a kind of immortal super agent who lives forever. And this immortal planner makes every decision to maximize the happiness of every single generation, from now until the end of time. And just like that, with that one big imaginary leap, the whole problem vanishes. Poof, gone. Those incomplete markets we talked about, they don't exist anymore. Why? Well, this immortal planner can trade with itself across time. It can borrow from the year 3000 to help out today, or save today for the year 4000. It has perfect foresight and can balance the needs of the present against the needs of the infinite future perfectly. And what's the result? Well, in the RCK world, everything is perfect. The economy always without fail finds the one single stable, optimal path. No more worrying about saving too much or too little. Everything just works. And if everything just works, well, there's absolutely no need for the government to step in. It's a beautiful, clean, mathematical world where everything just clicks into place. So let's step back. We've got two incredibly influential models, both trying to explain this same simple thing, saving. But they end up in completely different universes. One says the economy can be flawed and government can help. The other says the economy is perfect and government should stay out. So what's the big lesson here? What do we take away from this whole thing? Let's just put them head to head for a second. On one hand, you've got the diamond model. It's based on a more realistic idea, overlapping generations, and it gives you a messier world, a world where things can go wrong, and maybe government has a role. On the other hand, you have the RCK model. It's super abstract with this immortal agent, and it gives you a perfect, clean world where markets are always right and never need any help. The difference couldn't be more clear. And that brings us to what I think is the most important lesson of all. In economics, the assumptions you start with aren't just minor details. They're everything. They basically determine your conclusion before you even start. Whether you model people as real finite humans or as an immortal super being will completely change whether you think our economy is brilliant or broken. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The RCK model gets to its perfect, tidy conclusion by assuming away all the messy parts of being human, like, being mortal. So if the only way our models can find perfection is by ignoring reality, what does that say about the odds of finding perfection in our own messy, complicated, and very real world?